Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of my Cedar Point Recreation Park. In the last episode, we started making our way back towards the back of the park down Gemini Midway with some more flat rides. And today we're going to continue that trend with a couple more flat rides that spin you in a circle. I know I'm starting to get a little bit tired of making these. They're all kind of the same thing to build and it's getting a little annoying. Especially when you have some that are almost exactly the same ride. Like we're starting here with Super Himalaya, which is basically exactly the same thing as Matterhorn as far as our ride build in RCT goes. I hadn't really noticed before how many of the same kinds of rides there are at Cedar Point, because I usually don't ride these kinds of rides, but building them all together in a row like this really makes it obvious just how many duplicates there are. Which is kind of sad when you realize how many rides they have gotten rid of over the years. For example, the Enterprise ride, Witch's Wheel, got replaced a few years ago by a restaurant, so that was one unique ride they don't have anymore, but we still have two Music Express rides. Oh well, so it goes. I guess it makes things pretty easy on me. Since I don't have to learn a bunch of new different rides, I can just do the same ones over and over again. It's just a little annoying and repetitive, but oh well. After Super Himalaya, we have a Monster, another scrambler sort of ride. This one is a little bit bigger than most of the other ones, as it's got a few more cars on it than average. The most upsetting part of this build was realizing that they had repainted it a couple of years ago. It had been black and orange for many decades, and that's the memory of this ride I had burned into my mind. And I was distressed to find out that it is now like pink and red or something like that. Pink and yellow. Doesn't look nearly as cool. That also means that it was a lot more difficult to get the cars right for this shoestring since I had to paint them all individually. And the spinning Wild Mouse cars don't let you paint individual cars, so we had to use the vehicle editor plugin trick like we did with the Midway carousels to get them painted differently. And I had a heck of a time figuring out which ride to use that's the same size as the spinning Wild Mouse cars. Eventually got there, but I hope I never have to close and reopen this ride because the amount of messing around with the vehicle placement is really annoying. So that being said, I am pretty happy with the way it turned out. I think this one looks pretty good as far as the other scrambler rides in the park go. Next up, next door, we have Lake Eerie Eagles, a swing ride, just a little kiddie swing ride. Nothing too fancy about this one either, just another spin in a circle kind of ride. The only caveat with this one is that the ride vehicles are shaped like eagles, as you would expect. So I opt to go with the swan boats for the vehicles for this one. It looks really silly, but I feel like that's the closest we have. And it doesn't look awful. With the support structure, I think it actually looks pretty good, so I'm gonna keep it like this for now. It stands out as an interesting little ride for what is normally a very boring and unnotable ride in real life. Finally, moving away from shoestrung rides, we have a couple launch tower sort of things. The Slingshot ride by Gemini. One of the rides where you have to charge a couple extra bucks to ride, I believe. They strap you into a little seat and shoot you up in the air. It's basically a launch tower without the tower. You're using some sort of bungee cord system or whatever. But easy enough to fake an RCT with a launch tower. I really had hoped to use the ski lift chair for this one, but unfortunately, for some reason, that particular vehicle type doesn't work with the launch tower. Instead of launching upwards as it was supposed to, it just shoots its way up the tower and then flies off the end and crashes. Very sad. So I opted to go with the laydown cars from the suspended swinging coaster. Not totally accurate, but pretty close to the real thing. I feel like that it's going to be good enough for now. And it looks pretty good, especially with those two support towers next to it. This one will look even nicer once we get some of the ride operations buildings in behind it, but pretty happy with this one. Not too complicated, so that helps. Finally today, because I couldn't bear to do another shoestrung ride, I decided to put in Professor Delbert's Frontier Fling, which is another sort of slingshot ride, except this one, instead of launching you upwards, you are pulled up and then released from a tall height, but you're still strapped into some kind of bungee cord thing. There are probably a couple different ways you could do a ride like this, but I opted to go for a reverse incline launch shuttle mode coaster. Again, with the single rider laydown cars like we use for Slingshot. And that actually is more like what the real ride uses. And I think this one looks pretty good. It just acts like a reverse incline coaster would. And you get some nice back and forth swinging motion. Nothing too crazy, but looks pretty good. I thought about adding a couple extra track layers to get a few extra swings back and forth. Decided it probably wasn't worth the extra effort, but maybe we'll come back to it and see if we can add in a little bit extra ride time on this one once we do the station building and everything. But that is going to do it for all of our builds today, getting really close to the end of our flat rides. We've got Camp Snoopy and a couple more Frontier Town rides to go, plus figuring out whatever the heck we're supposed to do with Thunder Canyon. But that will come later on. We're getting very close to the end of our shoestringing era, which I'm pretty happy about. Building these rides has gotten pretty easy for me, and I can get them done pretty quickly, but it's gotten very annoying to put these together, so I'll be very happy to leave this era of the park behind. Anyway, we're going to wrap up there. As always, if you've got any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.